Are you in the market for a suppressor, but maybe didn't know where to start or what to look for? Well, we're gonna have 5 talking points I want to talk to you about and kind of help you on your journey to find the right can for your gun. All right, so this video is gonna be geared more towards people who are newer to the suppressor or silencer market. And this information is not gonna apply just to our suppressors, but to a lot of suppressors on the market, if not all of them, because it's pretty much, I'm gonna give you a general blanket class, if you will, on how to select a suppressor for different weapons, pros and cons, and the different types of suppressors and why you might want to pick one over the other. Let's talk about first, what is a suppressor? Well, a suppressor is going to be essentially a muffler for your firearm. Just like you have an exhaust system on your car, if you were to take that off, it would sound a lot louder and you'd probably upset your neighbors, and it just sounds a lot more pleasant with a muffler on the end. Same essential technology is what's going on inside of a suppressor. You are cooling, slowing, stripping the gases that are propelling the bullet. And once those gases leave the muzzle, they are loud. They can be loud. So we use these things called silencers, suppressors, to mitigate the sound of the firearm. Now, what to expect? Is it like the movies? Well, it can be. And we'll get into why some guns will sound like the movies and some won't. We'll kind of get into the weeds here, not too deep, but just enough to where you kind of get a good idea if you were making a choice soon or down the road for a suppressor for your firearm. If you live in a state that it's not, unfortunately, not legal to own one, this video can still apply to you because your laws might change. They've been changing, and or you might move. So let's just kind of break it down here. I've already kind of broken down what a suppressor does. It essentially lowers the noise of your firearm, but there's also secondary uses for it. One would be flash suppression. So, and you think, why would I want a flash hider? Well, that can be good to preserve your night vision or your natural night vision. So if you're wearing night vision at night, or if it's in a dark environment, if you go shoot and there's a big fireball that comes out, sometimes that can temporarily blind you, and if you're in a situation where you're in a self-defense or it's hunting or whatever, it may distract you or be negative for you. So it not only reduces sound, but reduces flash. And then in some cases, not in all situations, but in a lot of scenarios, it can reduce recoil. And recoil is what a lot of people refer to as kick. So when they are shooting a gun, the stock hitting their shoulder, or when their cheek is on the gun, that constant movement to their face, that's what a lot of people refer to as kick. It's recoil, recoil impulse, so suppressors can cut down on that as well. And they can cut down on muzzle rise, and they can also just make the overall shooting experience more pleasant, and that can translate into better accuracy. A lot of people, when there's not as big as a concussion going off, not as much recoil, not as much muzzle rise, you tend to get calmer nerves, everything twitches less, and you have a better time, and you'll probably be more accurate. Contrary to popular belief, like in video games, suppressors do not slow the bullet. There can be some velocity effects, but they're pretty negligible. The sound barrier, like I was saying earlier, is something we can talk about. When a bullet breaks a sound barrier, that's a separate noise from the actual firearm. So the suppressor cannot actually muffle the noise of the bullet breaking the sound barrier. However, it can reduce the report of the propellants, the gunshot, the blast, the boom that you hear when you shoot a gun. But if you use something called subsonic ammunition, those are projectiles that do not break the sound barrier. So at sea level, I believe that's about 1150 feet per second, somewhere around there, don't quote me, but it's ballpark. As you go higher in elevation, that number changes, but essentially you can buy or reload bullets that are actually marked on the box subsonic, and if you're using a suppressor, not only will the report of the weapon be a lot lower, but the bullet's not breaking the sound barrier, so you'll get kind of that Hollywood quiet experience. That's really only achievable, that Hollywood quiet, with like 22, something like this 22 Rimfire, or a subsonic 300 blackout, or a subsonic 9mm, or a subsonic 45. .45 is naturally subsonic, so that's kind of nice. You can shoot .45 all day long and it sounds great with a suppressor. Let's kind of break down what suppressor you would want for certain applications. There are bolt action firearms. There are semi-automatic and full automatic firearms. There are direct blowback firearms, direct impingement firearms, piston firearms, inertia firearms. What does all that mean? Well, there's different ways that the action of the weapon actually recycle and replenish ammunition into the chamber. So whether that's manual, like on something like this, I load a round into the chamber, I will fire and have to manually reload it. There are semi-automatics, like this pistol again, where once I put a bullet into the chamber, every time I pull the trigger, pop, 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 a bullet will fire until the magazine is empty. So that can also affect what you hear when using a suppressor. For instance, on a bolt action, all the gas, all the noise, all the movement, well, there's no movement because it's bolt action, everything's going out the front of the weapon. So you can get away with running a suppressor, a longer one that's even more restrictive on gas, because you're not getting any gas coming back into the action. It's all going out the front. So all the noise, everything, like I said earlier, going out the front. Now on something like a semi-automatic, especially on something like a direct impingement, and you can look that up on the internet if you want to, what a direct impingement is. Essentially, it's a gas tube that takes gas from the barrel and brings it back into the action, pushing the bolt carrier group back and cycling another round in the chamber. Well, that gas getting pushed from the barrel into the weapon can be noisy, can be gassy, can be, in some cases, flashy. So having a suppressor that's really long on there and really restrictive can sometimes be a bad thing. Yes, it might sound great at the muzzle, but what happens is you're overpressuring the system, and now your bolt speed is increased, you have a lot more gas getting blasted out, and if you're a shooter, especially if you're a left-handed shooter, all that gas now is going right in your face. There's different types of suppressors for very good reasons. There's different applications. So why would you want one suppressor over the other? So like I talked about with the bolt action, a restricted suppressor, something that's going to be more aggressive at slowing those gases, but also being lightweight, because you don't want a heavy suppressor on your lightweight bolt action gun. On a semi-automatic, something like a high flow, something that's going to allow the gases to be less restricted and flow through the suppressor in a way that's sending less gas back. And honestly, if you can, the best thing to do with a suppressor on a semi-automatic is get a suppressor that almost mimics how the firearm works without a suppressor, meaning that there's not a lot of increased pressure or blowback. When you shoot it, it feels the same, suppressed or not. And then there's different materials you can use and different sizes you can use. Why would you want to choose one material over the other? Well, that would be lightweight or heavy duty use. So if you have something like a machine gun, you're probably not going to find a super lightweight suppressor that can handle mag dumps. They're going to be built out of a heavier duty material that can withstand a higher temperature. It's not so much a pressure thing with suppressors, it's more of a temperature thing. If you get them hot enough, depending on what material they're made out of, they can start to get damaged. Something like on a machine gun, titanium is okay. It's good in a lot of cases, but you want some sort of steel or exotic metal like stellite or inconel or something that can kind of absorb that unburnt powder from a short barrel and a lot of that fire and flame from the short barrel as well. So like on our goat right here, we have a stainless steel blast baffle that does an amazing job of absorbing that heat and absorbing all that unburnt powder that acts kind of like a sandblaster. Now, when you get into other stuff like submachine guns or PCCs, pistol caliber carbines, there's a couple routes you can take. You can go big or you can go small. And why would you want to go one or the other? Well, if you have a smaller package like this B&T, you can get away with a larger suppressor on the end and not have it be too big overall. I mean, it's still shorter with the stock extended than a short barrel AR. So something like this, you can get away with a fatter, longer suppressor and have good suppression, or you can go with something shorter, and if you really want to go compact, lightweight, and concealable. But essentially, low pressure versus high pressure is really what it comes down to when selecting these things. If you're shooting a lot of supersonic ammo, you're going to want something that has a little bit more of a less restrictive geometry inside. If you're shooting a lot of subsonic ammo, you can go with something larger. More volume will be great. It'll just eat it up, and you'll get, better performance with less gas in your face. But I'm going to kind of break it down 22 to 12 gauge, and we'll go through our lineup and what I would choose or why we choose certain suppressors for these hosts, and hopefully that'll kind of help you out in your decision. And like I said, this doesn't apply just to us, it applies to almost all the suppressors. 22, I have a Ruger Mark IV. So 22 generally likes a 1-inch suppressor. You can go crazy and do like a 2.5, 3-inch suppressor and make it long. But really there's kind of a plateau effect that happens to where you kind of make 22 as quiet as it can get. And then it just plateaus out. So it just starts sounding like a staple gun after a while. We found with our suppressor, the reason we have 9 baffles on this, I'm kind of OCD, I would have chose 8 or 10, but we went with 9 because in our performance testing, we found that 9 was a good balance on a pistol and a rifle. So you didn't get, with 10, we had louder port pop coming back in the shooter's face. It's not in the face, but in your environment, to where when you were shooting, it sounded louder to the shooter with 10 baffles, and you think a longer suppressor should sound quieter. Well, I'm talking about there's a balance here. There's a give and take to everything in this realm of suppressor technology. So you can break this down, make it shorter, but I prefer that 9 baffles because that's when testing, that's what sounded the best on a pistol chambered in 22 long rifle. Now a rifle chambered in 22 long rifle, you can get away with a lot more because the pressures are a lot less, the barrels are a lot longer. You can pretty much, not that I'm condoning this, but you can pretty much put like a bottle on the end of a 22 and it'll sound good. But this allows you to maintain a small package. Like I said, you can go bigger if you want to, but a 1-inch suppressor, about 6 inches long, generally that's going to get you by a 22. And 22 doesn't have a lot of blowback, but you'll find with other suppressors, they'll sound really good at the muzzle, but louder at the port, or they'll sound really good at the port, but louder at the muzzle. We have a 17-4 stainless blast baffle on this 105 RFX Rimfire system, and that's going to allow for anybody that likes to shoot full auto 22, because shooting full auto 22 is probably the most fun you can have. But being able to take it apart and clean it is pretty important for rimfire. So not that you can't soak other suppressors in cleaners and do all that, but this just makes it really user friendly. And like I said, you can break it down, make it shorter. Like if I wanted to run this on a rifle, I would just probably make this about 4 baffles and it would sound just as quiet as this 9 baffle on a pistol. So that's why we chose the RFX for our rimfire. Going up from there, not necessarily caliber, but just in size, I would say 9mm. So you have a couple options with 9mm here. You can go the traditional route of a boosted suppressor, and there are many YouTube videos on boosted suppressors and what that means. Essentially, it's a device in the back here that allows you to use a tilting barrel pistol and not have hangups or malfunctions. So this is traditionally how you would suppress a pistol. Actually, traditionally it'd just be a screw-on suppressor and you would probably rack it every time. But this technology allows you to shoot semi-automatic with a pistol. The difference is going to be when you have something, well, I'll just show you. The difference is like when you have something this large on your firearm, now holstering it, putting it into a bag, you could, I guess, detach them and stow them together. But then when you pull it out to use it, you're gonna have to put it on. Whereas we have our preference, the 105 CCX from JK Armament. This is the concealed carry system. This is broken down in its short configuration. I have a spacer which we call our tone tuner, and 2 baffles, so it's a pretty small configuration. This comes with 5 baffles. It'll look like 6, but the first one's a tone tuner. This is a non-boosted suppressor for a pistol. So super lightweight. It does make the pistol larger, but comparatively, there's a big difference there. So you could conceal this. That's why it's called the concealed carry system. I prefer to use it as like a nightstand gun. Inside of a structure, like right now we're in this room. If I were to shoot this gun right now unsuppressed, both Savio and I's ears would be ringing. I'm not saying they wouldn't be ringing with this on there, but it would be much less, and the concussion would be much less disorienting. Situational awareness inside of a structure, inside of a vehicle, concealed carry, and it cuts down the recoil a little bit. You can see some of our videos, we'll shoot these things on full auto, like this one is full auto. We'll shoot on full auto with 2 baffles like this, or even 1 baffle commonly, and it really makes it to where you can keep the gun on point. 2 options, boosted, non-boosted. We prefer non-boosted. If you want to be James Bond and be like the movies, you can do the boosted option. It is quieter. I forgot to mention that. This is nowhere near as quiet as this, but there are, like I said, there's trade-offs to everything in the suppressor realm. Next up, I'll kind of go over like a PCC or a submachine gun category. Our 155 cans, so we have our 105 series, which I just showed you with the CCX and the RFX. We have our 155 series. The 155 series is hub threaded, so you can install the accessory of your choice. In this case, we have a 3-lug mount on the back, and that allows us to just go ahead and pop it on this 3-lug barrel, twist it, and you're on. Take it off, spin, comes off. Pretty neat system, very fast. You can do it with one hand. But the Versa X9 from JK Armament, the 155 Versa X9 is the one that I chose for this. This is going to be a 6 baffle suppressor. There is a 8 baffle version of this, and it's called the RPX9. And that's going to sound really good, but it's longer. And for something like this, I can stow this stock. This whole thing can be stowed inside a bag really easily. Versa X9 with 6 baffles, all aluminum, super lightweight, and durable enough to handle most applications, including full auto. We have that RPX9 I was talking about. That has a titanium blast baffle in there, so that will truly be full auto rated, and you can shoot whatever you want. So next up, we'll go to this 5.56. So earlier I was talking about dedicated suppressors versus hybrid suppressors, or like multi-caliber suppressors. For instance, on this Versa X9, you could change out the end cap to a 30 caliber end cap and shoot on your 30-30. It would sound awesome. This is also something that you can do some similar with, this being the GOAT high flow 5.56 suppressor. It is a suppressor that is optimized around 5.56, but is not dedicated to 5.56. So there's different types of suppressors out there, like I mentioned. This one's going to allow you to shoot multiple calibers through it, but it's going to perform the best on 5.56 223. That's what we designed it for. We found that the bore aperture that was larger worked better with our baffle geometry. So just so happens you can change the end cap out on this and shoot pretty much up to 9mm through this. But it is a 5.56 suppressor. There are some dedicated 5.56 suppressors on the market, and you can tell that by when you look inside of them. The bore aperture is a 22 caliber bore aperture, or sometimes up to a 6mm bore aperture, but that restricts you to one firearm. Those can sound really good. A dedicated suppressor generally sounds and performs amazing on that caliber because it's what's designed for. Hybrid suppressors, multi-caliber suppressors generally will be good on multiple hosts, but you'll probably find the host at home that it performs the best on. You'll probably let it live there. That's just the way I operate as well. But something like this GOAT, you could put it on your pistol if you wanted to, your lever gun, whatever, but it's optimized for 5.56, so that's why it's on a 5.56. So it's an 11.5. 11.5 is referring to the barrel length, an 11.5 inch barrel. So this suppressor is more than capable of handling a short barrel machine gun, and it's got great flash reduction, great sound reduction, and the materials are durable enough, like I said, to handle that full auto fire and the short barrel. That is the GOAT high flow from JK Armament suppressors. Next up, we'll go with the 6.5 Creedmoor. This could be applicable to pretty much any short action caliber. 6.5, 308, all those. RPX 30 is gonna be awesome for you. It's gonna be lightweight. It comes with a titanium blast baffle and it's hub threaded, so you can choose whatever mount you want because there's a plethora of mounts out there, especially for bolt actions and ARs. And then what I like to do is throw this compensator end cap on the end. Because like I said, all the gas is coming out the front on something like this bolt action rifle, right? I don't really have to worry about any gas coming back in my face because it's sealed. So I can stack more baffles on here. So this is gonna be an 8 baffle suppressor with a compensator end cap because I have 8 baffles, so I'm already doing great in the sound reduction department. Now I want ultimate recoil reduction. So we have a lightweight, sound reducing muzzle brake, if you will. That's essentially what's going on here. We are cutting the sound down and also reducing the recoil. So on this gun right here, you can shoot more comfortably on a precision rifle setup like this, and that will probably translate into better accuracy because you're a human. You're gonna flinch sometimes. That's just how it goes. A suppressor allows you to kind of keep your head in the game more and not have so much atmospheric distraction. So that's the RPX 30 from JK Armament. Like all the other suppressors, it can be broken down and cleaned and be broken down. If you just want a couple baffles on there and a muzzle brake or the compensator end cap, a lot of my guys that I deal with in PRS, they'll literally have 2 baffles and that muzzle compensator muzzle cap on there. Compensating end cap on there. So the whole thing is only about this big. They don't really care about sound reduction. They're going more for recoil control and compensation, so muzzle rise mitigation. Let's talk about shotgun suppressors. Yeah, you can suppress a shotgun. Kind of seems like backwards in a way, right? Because you think of the technology of a shotgun. If you don't know, most projectiles out of a shotgun are not just one projectile, they're multiple. And they expand in like a cone pattern. And you can look up videos on how shotguns work. We actually have some pattern testing videos on our YouTube channel. But we've kind of come up with a trumpet baffle design. So it kind of catches the shot and the shot cup. Essentially, it's almost like a barrel extension in a way. It keeps the shot compressed and pressurized until it leaves this. And you can buy different end caps for your shotgun suppressor and maintain the choke pattern that you would have if you just had a choked unsuppressed shotgun. It's pretty cool. We do see some recoil reduction with this as well, which is, in my opinion, the best feature of this suppressor. Sound reduction, yes. Recoil reduction, I mean, if you think about a recoil reduction device on a shotgun, generally it's gonna be a muzzle brake or a compensator. And I don't know about you, but if you ever shot a compensated or muzzle braked 12 gauge, they are loud. Like really loud. Even with hearing protection on, it's still very concussive. What's cool about these is this gives you that recoil reduction, maybe not to the level of a full-blown muzzle brake, but you'll notice it. And it also cuts down on the noise. So it's, I don't know, it's a pretty cool setup, and they are super lightweight. This is the largest model we make, and it still can be mounted to a longer barrel and you won't overswing on a clay or a bird. And if you're worried about that, we have our Versa X12, which is pretty much specifically designed for hunters. You can use it on a short barrel. It probably won't give you the sound reduction you're looking for. You probably will be like wanting more, like something like this. On a longer barrel hunting shotgun, especially like on a semi-automatic, this Versa X12 comes with 4 baffles and it's super lightweight. It's the lightest weight model we make. Now you can break down any of our shotgun suppressors to any length you want. And I actually recommend that to people is buy the longest one, break it down to whatever size you want. Because let's just say, like I said earlier, this is gonna be great for hunting, but if you want to put on another shotgun, if it's got a shorter barrel, you may be wanting more. With this, you can pretty much have your cake and eat it too. You can put it on anything you want. And if it's on a short barrel semi-automatic shotgun or full auto, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, you can get the breacher. This is gonna be our high flow model. That's gonna allow the most gases to pass through it with the least amount of restriction. Great for something like this shorter barrel M4 Benelli. That's all 3 of the suppressors. We have more suppressors in all of our lines, but on our 195, I wanted to show you all of them because they are kind of all unique. whereas the other ones are kind of just different calibers in that specific size, whereas these kind of have different uses. I would get the 195 SGX for any shotgun application in 12 gauge because you can break it down, change the end cap, kind of play with it, and tune it to whatever shotgun you are using. Now, if you have a lot of money, then you can buy multiple suppressors for multiple shotguns and not have to play with, you know, the whole Game of Thrones, game of mounts. To that, with our 155 series, like I said, they are hub threaded, so you can kind of play with it and move it around to different firearms that you may own. And because our suppressors are modular, that will allow you to kind of play with the baffle stack. Like for instance, this RPX 30 on here. If I wanted to run this on an AR-15, I'd probably run it on something like a 14.5 or a 16-inch, a little bit longer because it is lighter materials. But 8 baffles would probably be too gassy for me. So I would break it down to 6, 5, 4, 3, somewhere in there. And I would just test it to where I kind of find that sweet spot. My brass pattern, the ejection pattern, I'd look at that and kind of see where I'm getting the best tuning, so to speak. So change the mount, put it on your AR, put it on your lever gun. That's kind of cool in my opinion. Yeah, we've kind of gone over 22 to 12 gauge. There are other calibers out there that I didn't cover. Obviously, I just covered some of the more popular stuff that people shoot, like 22, 9mm, 5.56, 6.5, and 12 gauge. I did cover a little bit about 45 and 300 blackout and 9mm and 22 subsonic. Again, that's going to allow you to use your suppressor to its full potential. Subsonic ammunition really was designed to be used with suppressors. There's some other applications that subsonic ammo can be used for. They do generally hold tighter groups because they don't go transonic. You can look that up too. But it's pretty much subsonic bullets mated with suppressors, and then tuning it to your host to make sure it performs the best is gonna give you the best overall experience when shooting suppressed. And like I said, it's not just with our suppressors. Do your research, find out what the benefits, what the strengths and weaknesses are of that suppressor you're looking at, and find out what host it would go best on in your stable. I hope that helps, guys. That was a pretty long-winded video. I apologize if that was too long. I hope I kept your attention the entire time. So that's kind of the name of the game here, is it's customizable to you, very user-friendly, user-serviceable. Those are our choices from JK Armament Suppressors. And if you have any more questions, please comment below in the video, like and subscribe, and comment also too what other videos you'd like to see kind of explaining these kind of one-on-one videos, if you will. But yeah, we appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the range.